What's going on YouTube? I'm Nick the Tutor, and this channel is dedicated to improving your SAT, ACT, and AP scores. Today's video, we're going to talk about ACT reading comprehension. I want to go through some of the strategies that helped me improve my score exponentially on the reading section. Now, when I was in high school, I was not a strong reader, but I was able to perform well on the test utilizing certain strategies. This video is going to be dedicated to teaching you guys those strategies. Now, on top of that, we're streaming live right now on TikTok. And I'm going to be answering students' questions at the end of this video, so make sure to watch. You might have some of the same questions as someone else. We're taking the live comments from TikTok and Instagram right now, but if you want to comment below a question you have on YouTube, we will answer it in the next video, so definitely shoot us a comment below. So let's get into it. All right, number one thing you have to know about the reading comprehension section of the SAT or ACT is that you do not need to do the passages in order. A big mistake that students make is that they just go from beginning to end, and that results in a lot of stress because maybe you find the first passage to be incredibly difficult. Now, you might know the first passage is usually a prose passage. It's a fiction passage. It's not about dolphins. It's not about economics. It's not about Ben Franklin. It's going to be a story that was written by someone that's made up. If you don't like reading books, you might not like the first passage. So in that instance, you may want to skip and start with the second passage and do the first passage last. All right, strategy number two. A lot of students do like to read the questions first. Now, I want to delve into this topic a little bit because this is one of those controversial topics in terms of SAT, ACT strategy. Should I read the questions first? Now, for most of you out there, I think the answer is going to be no, and I'll tell you why. On the ACT, you simply do not have enough time to read the questions first, answer some of the questions that you think are easy, go back, read the passage, it just becomes very, very confusing, right? But for those of you that are really, really quick and very fast reader, I think you are able to do that, and if you are able to do it successfully, I think it is a good strategy. Look, in an ideal world, which is a world where tests are untimed, of course, you would read all the questions, you would annotate, you would try to place, notation on the passage as to, where's question one going to come from? Where's question two? That would be amazing. The problem is on the actual ACT, you do not have time to do that. So I think what you guys need to do is on a case-by-case basis, on a student-by-student basis, evaluate, do I have enough time to get this done? Is it helping my score or is it hurting my score? And that is the main thing, I think, in terms of doing the questions first. But I would say, in terms of reading the questions first, most of you should not do it. All right, number three, a very common strategy and one that helped me greatly was to do the line reference questions first after reading the passage for me because I needed the time to read the passage. Now, what do I mean by doing the line reference questions first? Well, if you don't know, some of the questions address a specific line in the passage. They say, why did the author place this line there? What is the meaning of this line, or what is the meaning of this word, right? And they reference a line. It says line 14, line 27. Those questions are often seen as a little bit easier because they only reference a small piece of the passage, and some students have developed a strategy where they just go straight to those questions and then just go straight to answering them without actually reading the passage. I don't think that's necessarily a good idea, but I do like the idea of doing those questions first after you've read the passage. And the reason for that is that it helps you evaluate the meaning of the passage. It gives you more time to read and digest pieces of information in the passage that are probably important because those are pieces of the passage that test makers asking you questions about. So if they're asking you a question about a paragraph and referencing a line, that's probably an important piece that you would want to reread. Well, why not reread it while you're doing a question, get the question right, and then have expanded your understanding of the passage. So I think that actually is a good strategy. After reading the passage, do the line reference questions first. That can be really helpful. All right, point number four, guys. You want to use the elimination strategy whenever possible on the reading comp section of the ACT. Now, a lot of people have heard this, and it's a common thing to know that two of the answer choices typically are way off base on a multiple choice test, right? So on reading comp, you might have two left field answer choices that don't really make that much sense, and then you have it down to two. But I think the important point about this is that to improve your score, it is very helpful to eliminate those two choices that are ridiculous so that you just physically cross them off the page, like don't even keep them in consideration. You will actually then have a 50% chance of getting the question correct. You will make your life much easier by eliminating answer choices, so I highly recommend that you physically cross them off on the page. And I want to quickly touch on when you do get down to two answer choices, how do you answer? And that's my next point. The biggest thing students need to do is they need to nitpick the language on reading comp and on the answer choices. So after fully reading each answer choice, you need to say to yourself, one, does this generally say what I wanted to say as the answer to this question. That's great. That's how you get it down to 2. What you do to get, down to 1, which is of course the goal, is you say, okay, do the individual words in this answer choice indicate exactly what I want, or do they possibly indicate something else? So you need to nitpick each vocabulary word, each piece of the answer choice, and say, does this indicate what I want? It's a refined skill that you need to try to develop by looking at right answers and wrong answers and evaluating them over time. It's a great study strategy. When you get a question wrong, try to really digest why is choice A correct and why is choice B incorrect. It's a hard thing to do. It's a little bit frustrating, but I highly recommend that you do that, because then you can use the strategy of nitpicking the answer choices, nitpicking the language, and then you can get the question correct. All right, point number 6, guys. One of the great strategies on the ACT reading is that you have to rely on textual evidence. On, I would say, 90 to 95% of the questions, the answer is literally present in the passage. So that gives you a lot of confidence, right? I know the answer is somewhere in there. Now, you don't want to waste too much time. You have to be cognizant of your time management. But at the end of the day, you know it's there. The only time it's not going to be there is when they ask you to infer. And then you have to know, okay, they're asking me for an inference. I know it may not be there, and now I know I need to use your brain to think about what the author would say or what you would put as the answer. So I think one of the main points is that, yes, all of the answers are in the passage except for the inference questions, but beyond that, using your brain to try to comprehend what's going on is crucial, rather than just being kind of a test robot and going through the motions of plugging in the answer choices. All right, point number 7, guys, you have to understand the trap answers on reading comp questions. Some of the popular trap answers are the half right, half wrong, where it's half totally correct. You're like, wow, that first half that I read is great. Then there's a second half to the answer choice, and that is misleading or incorrect. You also have the reverse answer choice, where basically you're looking for some kind of answer and they give you the exact opposite of that answer. That is difficult because for some weird reason psychologically that does make you think, maybe I have it backwards, maybe that is the correct answer, and you want to be careful about that. The other kind of trap answer choice is an answer choice with absolutes in it, right? It says always, never. It's too drastic, so it's like a drastic answer choice. It may be reflective of what you're thinking about and what the passage is about, but it's like an extreme version of that. It's like too over the top. It's too dramatic. You want to look at that and you want to say, is this really how the passage is presented? Does the author describe a situation as intolerable? Intolerable is, it means you can't tolerate it. Or is he just kind of sad about it? He doesn't like it. That's two totally different things. And that's where your mindset needs to be on a standardized test like the ACT or the SAT. All right, strategy number 8, guys. Like I said before, and this is probably the most important one, you have to think of the answers to the questions before reading the answer choices. So if they ask you, what is the author's main point? You want to take a step back and say, what do I think the main point is, right? That's an amazing strategy to not only try to digest the passage, but match up your prediction with one of the answer choices. Once you start reading their answer choices, you get sucked in to their wacky logic of half right, half wrong, reverse answer choices, drastic answer choices, and you start getting confused. So you want to use your own brain to really comprehend and think about what the answers to the questions would be. All right, point number 9, guys. This is probably the most difficult one to do. You have to try to enjoy the passage. Now, not a lot of people are going to get a great deal of enjoyment out of a passage about whale habitats or about some weird aspect of economics that no one cares about. But at the end of the day, if you try to just trick yourself into enjoying the passage, and a lot of that can be done by putting a framework into place. If I try to understand the topic, the main point, the tone, the structure, the author's perspective, I will simulate what it would be like if I enjoyed something. So when you enjoy something, you read it actively, like you're really thinking about it critically. And you have to read the passage about, banana varieties. You're like, okay, don't really care that much about bananas, but if I can come up with these aspects, I really can, perform well in the passage. I can have some at least feigned interest in it, and that will greatly help your performance. So try your best to think about it positively. When you read something that's boring, don't say to yourself immediately, oh God, I can't believe how boring this is, because that's just going to negatively affect your performance. So we got to keep the positive vibes going. You got to stay positive and stay happy during the exam as much as possible, and that will help your performance. All right, point number 10, guys, pay attention to your mistakes, evaluate your mistakes. When you get a question wrong, try to figure out why. Try to figure out, like I said before, why is the correct answer answer correct? Why is the incorrect answer incorrect? That is so important. Really make sure and think about that. That can really help your performance, take you to that over 30 level on the ACT, over 1400 on the SAT. Those are the students that really evaluate their mistakes, understand why a question is wrong, understand why an answer choice is incorrect. That's just as valuable as knowing why the correct answer is correct. If you can say, oh, these three are incorrect, I don't know if this last one's correct or not, but based on these other three being incorrect, I have the answer. That works. That is fine, and that is awesome. All right, point number 11, guys, focus on your weaknesses. You want to make sure to find out where you maybe are not doing well on reading comp. Is there a certain passage type that you struggle with? Is there a certain question type that you struggle with? Take that and try to adjust, right? Try to find a way to improve on those kinds of questions, on those kinds of passages, and understand maybe I need more practice with this kind of passage or this kind of question. That will really take you to the next level, and that's an awesome piece of advice. Now let's get into the Q&A.
What do you think the best way to study for the word replacement part in the SAT?
The best way to do that is to basically to ignore the word that's present. So you don't even pay attention to the word. You just totally ignore the word that's there, and you pick in your own mind, you use your own vocabulary word. So you think about the context. You have to think about the overall meaning of the sentence and the context of the sentence. And then you can place your own idea as to what the sentence is supposed to mean, and then pick the answer choice that reflects the meaning that you're looking for. You just totally ignore the word they give you. Because what they do is they give you a word that if you looked up in a dictionary has 15 different definitions to it. So they'll give you the word issue. If you go on Merriam-Webster.com, the word issue has 11 different definitions. Issue can mean you have a problem with someone. It could be like giving something out, like issuing a passport or a license. It could also mean your children, like your issue are your children. It could be a noun. So the word issue just has so many meanings. So when they place it in a sentence, it's pointless to even try to figure out which one they're going for. You just think about the overarching meaning of the sentence, and then you pick the answer choice that reflects the meaning, ignoring the word issue. That's the strategy. You have to almost ignore their word, which is a great point. And a great strategy for the SAT is that you ignore a lot of things they give you. You have to use your own brain. You have to use your own mind to comprehend and think about what's being presented to you, not just get sucked into their wrong answer choices and all their traps.
Do you see yourself being a teacher in the future?
Do I see myself being a teacher in the future? No. I love teaching kids. I love working with students, and I greatly respect teachers, but I own this company, so I'm not planning on it, so I wouldn't mind it though. I mean, if someone said, oh, like, here's a teaching job, like, this no longer exists, I would probably do it.
Should I send a follow-up email to my college admissions office after I send my application?
And you can, if you want to. It can show, if you feel like you're borderline and you want to show interest to the school, then you can do that. But I don't think you need to. But it can, if you're trying to show them that you're serious. If you think that's hurting your application, if you think your application is being hurt by the fact that you live really far away from the school, you never visit it because of COVID. Like, you want to tell them, look, this is my top choice. I'm really serious about it. That could be good.
Is it better to major in finance and minor in computer science, or the other way around?
I would do it the other way around, because it depends, right? Like, are you going to teach yourself how to code? Because if you're going to teach yourself how to code, then you don't need to major in computer science at all. I mean, it depends on like your career path. Like, obviously coding, any kind of skill in coding is going to be of utmost value. I just know from hiring people here, like if someone like Mary knows how to code, like to a mild degree, like not at a professional degree, but to a little bit of a degree is so helpful. So I think, you don't want it to be like, oh, you have a minor, but you can't actually do it. Like, you need to be able to speak the language of people in that industry. So majoring in it might be a better idea. Like, you could pick up the finance stuff, like when you get a job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's hard to pick up coding, like, unless you can. That's kind of a hard answer. Like, one of my cousins took like one of those like 7-month programs and learned how to code in 7 months. So now he has a job as a coder. So like, you can learn it that quickly. You just have to like immerse yourself. So it depends on how much time you want to spend coding.
What's the best way to study for the SAT from an SAT book?
I think the best way to study for the SAT from an SAT book is to use the book to learn the strategies of the exam. So that's why I made my book to be totally strategy based, because that's what will help a student that's using a book to study. Because the problem with using a book, like, you have a book of 1,000,000 questions, that's awesome, right? You do 1,000,000 questions, but do you know how to take the test? That's the key, right? That's what you get out of like a tutor when you pay someone thousands of dollars. They're telling you how to take the exam. My book is a simulation of that, but for $10 basically. So the point is, it tells you how to take the test. It helps you understand the test. You can download an unlimited number of free SAT questions online. So use the free questions online and use the book to learn how to take the test. That's what I would do. And then do practice tests like every week and use the book to like learn how to take the exam.
Do you know if that SAT is optional for class of 2022?
It's optional on a school by school basis. So some schools are optional, some schools won't be. A lot of them are reversing that, some aren't. So, it depends on the individual school. I mean, you don't have to do anything. Getting good grades is optional too. Like clubs are optional, sports are like there's nothing that you have to do, You just do what you think is best for your college application, what you want to do. Like you don't want to play a sport, you just don't play it, right? You don't want to take the SAT, just don't do it, But like obviously being good at a sport, being a, president of a club, having charitable, time spent in charitable endeavors, those all help your college application. So does the SAT. So if you want to do it, and if you don't, just don't. It's all good.
Do you know anything about GPAs to get into the NYU?
You could find all that information online.
Yeah.
It's probably pretty high, like 3.7, 3.8 or something like that.
Somebody asked ACT science tips and strategies.
I have a whole video on that on YouTube, so definitely check that out. It's hard. There's a lot of them. I mean, I can't really say them all.
We have a question coming in from TikTok. They have 1 week to study for the ACT. What's your advice?
If you have 1 week to study for the reading portion of the ACT, what I would do is take a timed reading section every other day and spend the next day grading and analyzing your answers, analyzing the correct answers, analyzing the incorrect answers, and then you can improve the most you possibly can in that amount of time. If you're really dedicated, you have a lot of time, maybe you could do an entire section a day and review it. That will really help your score. It'll give you the most amount of information in the shortest amount of time, and you can make adjustments each day to improve your score.
All right, I have a question coming in from Instagram actually. I'm a slow reader and I'm not really that good at test taking. What's your advice?
That's a great question. That's a question that I get all the time. What I would say is you have to find a way for you as an individual to take the exam. So what I would do is I would actually take a passage and I would time out how long it takes to read that passage. So set a timer, start reading like you were taking the test, and when you finish, stop the timer. And you can see how much time does it take me to read a passage, right? And then you know how much time you have left over for the questions. Now, if we're talking ACT, you have 9 minutes approximately per passage, really 8 minutes and 45 seconds to complete the passage. So if you read the passage in say, 2-3 minutes, you're fine. That's perfectly acceptable. If you're in the 4 to 5 minute range, you're going to have to start to cut corners to get it done. So what I would do is try to skim some parts you feel are unimportant, or find some other methodology to try to get it done more quickly. A lot of students say focus on the first and last sentence of each paragraph. I don't like doing that, but if you have to cut corners due to time, that's what you should do.
Question coming in from TikTok. What's the best way to study for the ACT when you don't have a lot of financial resources?
Great question. What I would do is I would buy a book, a strategy book on Amazon or on another website to try to understand how to take the test. That is the huge part of test taking that a lot of students miss out on, is they might understand the content, they might know the formulas, they might know the grammar rules, but they don't know how to take the test. And that's why the SAT and ACT are hard, right? Because there's a test taking style that you need to understand. So I would get the strategy book, and then I would use the free resources online, free SAT exams, free ACT exams, Khan Academy. You can utilize those resources, and basically with one book of strategy and those resources, you can pretty much study for the test, take diagnostic tests, evaluate your performance, learn the strategy, rinse and repeat until you score well on the exam. And that's pretty much what I would do. If you guys have any more questions, comment them down below. We are featuring individual questions in the YouTube videos. So shoot us the comment, I will answer. Great job with the strategies for reading. I want to know about the science strategies. That's awesome. We actually have a video that you can check out.